If you love scary stories, you're in the right place. There is a deep, ancient terror hiding in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. Locals know that when the sun dips below the ridges, the woods belong to something else. Last summer, my buddy Tyler and I went backpacking near the Blue Ridge Parkway. By 8 p.m., a thick, suffocating fog rolled in, cutting our visibility down to just a few feet. We set up camp in a small clearing, the silence around us so absolute it made my ears ring. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of Tyler's voice coming from deep within the dense tree line. He was calling my name, sounding terrified, begging me to come help him because he had fallen and broken his leg. I scrambled out of my sleeping bag, grabbed my flashlight, and was about to sprint into the pitch-black woods. But just as I unzipped the tent flap, the beam of my flashlight caught the opposite corner of the tent. Tyler was lying right there, fast asleep, his breathing heavy and regular. My blood turned to pure ice. The voice outside didn't stop. It kept repeating the exact same phrase, with the exact same panicked inflection, over and over again from the darkness. "Help me, I broke my leg. Help me, I broke my leg." It wasn't a person, it was a mimic, a creature trying to lure me into the shadows by practicing human speech. I crawled back, grabbed Tyler, and shook him awake while covering his mouth. We sat in total silence for 4 agonizing hours, listening to my own voice start calling back to us from the woods, mocking us until the sun finally rose. If you travel to the flat, open farmlands of western Kansas, you'll find cornfields that seem to stretch on for eternity. My grandfather owned a homestead out there, and he always told me to never look out the windows after the harvest. One October, after he passed away, I went down to clear out his old farmhouse. On my second night, I looked out the kitchen window into the barren, stalks-cut field and noticed a scarecrow standing under the moonlight. It was strange, because my grandfather never used scarecrows. It was dressed in ragged overalls, its burlap head tilted at an odd angle. The next morning, I went out to investigate, but the scarecrow was gone. I assumed local kids were playing a prank. But that night, I looked out the window again. The scarecrow was back. Only this time, it was 50 yards closer to the house, standing right at the edge of the yard. There were no footprints in the dirt. I locked every door and window, pulling the curtains shut. Around 3 a.m., a horrible scratching sound began scraping against the side of the house. It moved slowly, dragging itself along the wood planks until it reached my bedroom window. I couldn't stop myself. I parted the blinds just an inch. Pressed flat against the glass was the rotting burlap face, its crude, stitched-on smile stretching wide as 2 long wooden stake arms violently slammed against the frame. I hid in the closet until dawn. When I went outside, the scarecrow was gone, but the window screen was shredded, and a pile of dead, dry corn husks was left sitting on the porch. The Pacific Northwest is famous for its misty pine forests, but the coastline of Washington holds a different kind of darkness. I was driving down an isolated stretch of Highway 101 heavy with rain and sea fog. It was nearly 2 a.m., and my eyes were playing tricks on me, so when I saw a brightly lit neon diner appearing out of the mist, I pulled over immediately. The sign read, "The Drifting Sailor." Inside, the air was warm, smelling of fresh coffee and pie. There were about a dozen patrons sitting in booths, all dressed in heavy yellow rain slickers. I sat at the counter, but nobody looked up. Nobody moved. The waitress stood at the end of the counter, her back to me, pouring coffee into a cup that was already overflowing. the dark liquid spilling across the counter and dripping onto the floor in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. I cleared my throat and asked for a menu. The moment the words left my mouth, the entire diner fell into a dead, freezing silence. The waitress slowly turned around. Her face was completely smooth, covered in pale, bloated skin with no eyes, no nose, and no mouth. Simultaneously, every single patron in the booths turned their heads toward me. Their rain hoods fell back, revealing the same faceless, waterlogged heads. I stumbled backward out the door, throwing myself into my car and tearing out of the parking lot. When I looked in my rearview mirror, there was no diner. There were no neon lights. There was only the dark, empty cliffside dropping off into the black, roaring ocean. Down in the swamplands of southern Louisiana, the bayou holds secrets that the water refuses to wash away. My uncle was a gator hunter who spent his entire life navigating the black waters of the Atchafalaya Basin. He always warned me that if I ever heard the sound of a baby crying out in the middle of the swamp at night, I should never row toward it. He told me about a night in 1994 when he was out checking his lines under a blood-red moon. The air was thick with mosquitoes and the heavy scent of rot. Around 1 a.m., the crying started, echoing off the cypress trees. Against his better judgment, he thought someone had capsized, so he steered his flat-bottom boat toward the sound. As his flashlight cut through the moss hanging from the branches, he saw a bundle floating in the dark water. He reached out with his oar to pull it closer, but as the bundle rolled over, the crying stopped instantly. It wasn't a baby. It was a massive, pale human head, easily 3 times the size of a normal man's, sitting directly on top of a webbed, reptilian torso. The creature opened its eyes. They were glowing, milky white, and it let out a deep, chest-vibrating laugh that sounded exactly like my uncle's deceased father. It lunged for the side of the boat, its long, webbed fingers gripping the aluminum. My uncle grabbed his machete and hacked at its hands until it let go, sinking back into the black water with a splash that nearly capsized him. He never went out on the water after dusk again, and until the day he died. He swore the bayou was full of things that stole the voices of the dead just to drown the living. Our final story takes us out to the scorched earth of the Nevada desert, along a forgotten highway where people go to vanish. I was driving a moving truck across the country, completely isolated on a 2-lane road with nothing but sagebrush and asphalt for miles. My cell phone had been dead for hours. Around 3:30 a.m., I spotted an old, rusted payphone standing completely alone on the gravel shoulder, miles away from any gas station or town. Just as my truck drew parallel to it, the payphone began to ring. The sound was incredibly loud, cutting through the hum of my engine. I pulled over, curious and exhausted, thinking it might be an emergency. I stepped out into the freezing desert air, walked over and lifted the heavy receiver to my ear. There was nothing but heavy, wet static on the line. I said hello, but nobody answered. I was about to hang up when a voice finally broke through the white noise. It was a mechanical, synthesized voice, like an old computer text-to-speech program. It didn't ask for help. Instead, it slowly read out my current license plate number. Then, it described the exact clothes I was wearing. My heart stopped. I began to back away, but the voice spoke one last time, freezing me in my tracks. "Do not turn around. The passenger in your back seat has been waiting for you to step out." I dropped the receiver, sprinted to the truck cab, and locked the doors. I looked in the small window that connected the cab to the cargo back, and sticking out from behind a stack of my moving boxes was a pair of long, pale gray arms, slowly reaching for the latch. I drove without stopping until I hit the bright lights of Las Vegas, leaving the truck at a gas station and never looking back. Like and follow for more true American nightmares. Comment below which story kept you up, and share this video with someone who thinks they're brave in the dark.